Hello, I'm Carolyn Holzman, and this is Confessions of an SEO. If you're new, this is season 5, and yes, that means that there are 4 other seasons. Now, most episodes are around 15 minutes, and it is my hope that you will find these stories and observations educational and entertaining, whether you're an SEO or not. Welcome to Confessions of an SEO. This is season 5, episode 2, and I do like it. You know, when you have a podcast that launches on a Tuesday, when you have a year that begins with a Wednesday, it gives you a little bit of time, for your body to detox from all the champagne and kind of get a leg up on the year before having to talk about something. Now, last week, I promised that today's topic would be schema. Don't worry, I'm going to verbally and physically share an actual test write-up, my test write-up. And I'm going to call this episode Screaming Schema. Now, before we get started, there's a quick update. No one has reached out on what they understood as the problems of content created in the Turkish language. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm still not interested. It just means I haven't heard from anybody. So I hope if anybody knows, you'll reach out. Now, if you didn't listen to last week's episode, that would make more sense. I talked about Google's podcast in which they uncovered some issues during a meet and greet in Turkey with publishers and SEOs, but neglected to actually fill in the details like what was it that was the problem, because the guys over in Turkey were complaining about the results. Now, I've also started to put this podcast on YouTube. When Google Podcast shut down, they gave us all a little bit of time to connect into YouTube and pull everything in and start publishing there. If you haven't, if you have a podcast and you haven't done that, you should try it because it's easy and there's more backlinks. Why did I mention YouTube? Well, I'm going to put the YouTube link in here to last week's episode. All right. So why schema? If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to give you a very simplified definition about what schema. Schema is something that search engines want us to use because it helps them understand what our content is about, but it also helps them to connect these relational dots between things. And when they say things, they mean everything. A book, a car, a business, a person, everything and anything. If it's a thing, there's a schema for it. So schema is one of those things that in our business, for the longest time, people have been trying to crack the code on it, declaring it to be a ranking factor when things go up and a recommendation in audits when there isn't any schema on your site. But no one can really describe the mechanism of it with clarity. No one but a colleague of mine. His name is Daryl Osborne, and I'm going to quote him. Schema is an amplifier, but it requires an entity to amplify, unquote. So if we don't have an entity, or we barely have established one, schema isn't going to help you. He went on to say, if you don't have an entity established in Google's awareness or knowledge graph, it's like trying to multiply something by 0. You're only going to get 0. In the past couple of years, there have been people who said that they've tested schema and it ranked a blank page. The problem with that is that upon closer examination, and I'm not going to break into anybody's proprietary work. But it took me a long time to get my eyeballs on these 2 pages that were being used as examples. And they are anything but blank. And to go back to Daryl's explanation of the mechanism, these were also pages that were talking about pretty well-established entities. But I did want to determine for myself as an SEO tester, could schema rank a blank page that only had schema? I mean, an actual blank page. They put it on the screen, it's white. and you only had schema in there. Now, by the end of this episode, you're going to know the answer to that question. And I am so excited for you. Okay, so I've done a little schema testing back in the day when I was in the IMG testing group. That was without any entity, just, properties with a slice of schema code that would be validated, meaning there were no errors that would make it hard for, let's say, Googlebot to read the code. And it contained tons and tons of random alpha words in those various properties so that once the test was launched and the page were indexed, I could search those unique words that Google hadn't heard of before and see if my test page would come up. Now, at the time, the results were, well, to put it in a nice term, inconclusive. And frankly, I wondered if in reality I had performed some other type of test, like maybe a keyword density test. But this time, instead of random alpha, I do have an entity that I'm building, Indexilla. Now, Indexilla is my indexing service. For those creating content of any kind, if your content meets Google's criteria for getting indexed and served, which is Google's criteria for getting indexed and served, they will get indexed and served. And your content might only meet Google's criteria for getting indexed, but not served. So if that's your criteria, Google's criteria against your content, then your content will then get indexed and not served if you're using Indexilla. Now, it's a new entity. It's trademarked and all business registered, Facebook page, Twitter page, soon a press release, but effectively it's a nascent entity, one just coming into existence. So I took an actual blank page and I placed schema in the header using, software application under Creative Works. So that was the type of schema that I used. And so far, there have been 4 of these tests. I will tell you what is the same and different. Each page had the exact same schema. Each page had a title, but they were not all the same. So they were different titles, but they did each possess a title tag. And 2 tests had the name Indexilla in their URLs. Now, if you want to see the write-up, which is done in the same format as a formal SEO test write-up that we used in various testing groups, you can find it at, and I'm going to give you a bit.ly link, bit.ly/indexdetector, all one word. And it's a secure URL, so it's HTTPS. Now, if you go there, scroll down until you see the words schema testing on a blank page test write-up. You will actually, when you download this on the Google Doc, actually PDF, you'll be able to see the URLs in question. Now, normally in testing, we do not do that because, well, we kind of know each other. Plus, just so you know, I'm going to be using a different domain as I continue to expand the testing on this topic. And there was a video as well. I did this for an SEO group. I did a webinar, and so I kind of cut the full video down to just talk about the testing and walk through the test write-up. And you can find that if you scroll a little further, you hit a little, you'll hit a row of YouTube thumbnails. So look for the one from January 8th. And last I looked, it was the most recent one, which means it's the first one. In this testing, these were my questions. 1, can Schema get a blank page indexed and ranked for Indexilla? 2, can Schema get a blank page with Indexilla in the URL ranked? 3, can Schema get a blank page with Indexilla in the title ranked? And 4, can Schema get a blank page with Indexilla in both the URL and the title ranked? Now, spoiler alert, Schema will get a blank page indexed. Schema alone will not get a blank page ranked or served. Serving is where you find it by its keyword in search results. Now, there is an update to this testing that is not in the write-up nor in the video. Right before doing this, I checked Search Console data on all of these. And there were cases where the page was ranking and served. Now, I shouldn't say served. I should say ranking because technically I'm looking at Search Console data. And I know that they have a way of telling you a page is indexed and showing you it has a position. But I will tell you, all of them showed their page. So there were, 4 subdomains. All of them showed their page ranking number 1 on January 8th. January 8th. It made me think. Knowing what I know about indexing and serving, I had presented this material to another SEO group. And I'm certainly since the video has been out and a lot of people have been sharing it, I'm certain several people went to the pages to view them. That presentation happened on the 6th, and it takes about 48 hours for data to show in Search Console. So I suspect that based on what I know, that on January 6th, I introduced some amount of CTR data, click-through response data. So you see, even if I didn't trust you, I would still need to change my domain to keep that test data uncontaminated. Well, that's it for me this week. Now, next week, I'm going to share about what's new in Google's indexation system. And I know you're going to say, like, Caroline, good God, we've heard about this for years. What's possibly new? It's new. It's so new. I'm not going to go there. All right. Check out Indexilla, which is my indexing service based on indexation research. It is so much within Google's terms of service. This is safe for every type of link, even your money site. If you need help with your site and you're not sure where to dig, contact my office. My specialty is forensic SEO. Where there are weaknesses in sites, I find reasons that we might want to do things differently. Does this mean I will find a silver bullet and bring you something that you've never thought of before? No. But if you're stuck and you just want to double check your bases with fresh eyes, by all means, reach out. To stay on the cutting edge of the state of indexing, check out Crawl or No Crawl on Substack. You can find it by searching for these words, Crawl or No Crawl. It even has its own knowledge graph. Thank you for being a listener. I hope I can count on you coming back next week for more SEO conversations, observations, and testing stories. If you have questions or topic ideas, I would love to hear from you. You can text confessions at 512-222-3132. Thanks again, and until next week, I'll see you in the SERPs.